All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So this week's practices at the Senior Bowl are officially in the books, and obviously the game is this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. But the practices are the real, like that's the sweet spot, right? That's where you're really gonna learn a lot about these different prospects, right? Where they're currently at, how they stack up against some of the top end talent in college football. How do they do with NFL verbiage, NFL coaching, things of that nature. And of course, that's only half the battle. The other half is meeting with teams while you're there. You're kind of on the fly. You're meeting with this team. You're meeting with this scout. You're meeting with this coach. Right? I mean, there's general managers all over the place. And quick little side note, Darren Muji did not go to the Senior Bowl, but I digress. In this one, I wanted to point out 6 prospects that really up their stock, right? The 6 Senior Bowl standouts, if you will. And I couldn't include everyone because I really wanted to kind of keep this Jets-centric. So I left out running backs. I left out, a lot of different guards, right? There's a lot of pretty impressive interior offensive line play as well. So let's dive into some of these standouts here, right? And keep in mind, again, all positions of need for the Jets here. First one up, defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. This dude was an absolute elite prospect at the high school level, right? This was, I actually believe he was the second rated national player in the country, the number 2 high school player in the country. Of course, goes to Texas A&M, ends up transferring out, goes to Ole Miss, and he has not looked back, right? The stats continue to grow. In fact, that's actually one of my favorite things about Nolan as a player. Every single year in college football, the 3 years of his collegiate career, the numbers went up. Sacks went up. Games went up. Tackles went up. Tackles for loss went up. This dude is powerful. This dude is fast. I think lining him up or stacking him on the defensive line with Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson coming back from injury, and of course Will McDonald. I mean, man, Walter Nolan has all the tools in the toolbox, if you will, the tool shed to stop the run and get into the backfield and make plays. Right, just a violent defensive lineman, and he's been on the scene for a long time, but it's really cool. And he was admittedly one of the players that everyone kind of saw, or everyone kind of expected him to come out this week and do really well because of just his overall hype as a prospect. Now, I don't know if 7 is a little bit too high at this point in time. I think he's going to go higher than where people have him slotted in right now, which is like bottom round 1. We'll see, of course, how the combine goes, how private workouts go, and everything like that. But, is 7 too high? I would say probably at this point, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But ideally, if you're the New York Jets, hey, man, like we don't have that Devontae Adams pick. We don't have that Hassan Reddick pick in 2026. I would be open to a trade back. If the Jets can move back to the mid-teens, I would take that. I mean, this team needs safeties. It needs a defensive tackle. It needs a right tackle, tight end, wide receiver depth. There's a lot of team needs that, obviously quarterback is a massive question mark at this point in time. We'll see what happens with Rodgers. But yeah, Nolan, absolutely fantastic week. Next up, linebacker from South Carolina, Demetrius Knight. This is someone who had an absolutely stellar week. Middle linebacker for the Gamecocks, 6'2", 245. What a fast, powerful, instinctual player at the linebacker position, right? Has really good vision, understanding where the ball carrier is, can follow and track the ball carrier as well. Again, when it came to this week, impressed everyone. I believe he actually won national team player of the week, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, you look at the Jets linebacker room right now. Hey, what's going on with CJ Mosley's future? What's going on with Jamian Sherwood's future? With Saleh leaving, with Jeff Ulbrich leaving, with Atlanta potentially having a need at linebacker. There's a lot of speculation that Sherwood could end up with the Falcons coming off a career season, which obviously leaves a huge hole in this, in the middle of the Jets defense here. Could we look to scoop up a guy in Demetrius Knight who I feel like would fit this defense, especially if we could scoop him up in round 2? You look at the importance of the linebackers in Aaron Glenn's defense back in Detroit. I mean, man, they had a lot of responsibility, right? Of course, physically on the field, but from the mental side of it, kind of having to quarterback the defense, understanding in-game situations, understanding that awareness as well. And also, you look at a guy in Alex Anzalone. This is someone who Aaron Glenn put a ton on his plate as far as, mid-play, pre-snap adjustments, giving him the freedom to kind of make those changes, right? Like coach on the field, if you will. And look, if we lose our talent at linebacker, we're going to have a big hole here. I just don't want the Jets to avoid that. I know the quote unquote off ball linebacker is not, all that popular in like a lot of draft circles and stuff, but I mean, by the way, look at how Edgerrin Cooper did for the Green Bay Packers a year ago, right? Coming out of Texas A&M, second-round pick. I mean, this guy had a fantastic year. He looks to be a future Packer for a long time. Could the Jets follow suit and select linebacker Knight here in round 2? I definitely feel like it's realistic, especially, again, if we lose these guys. Now, someone who I was pretty surprised by was Quincy Riley, the cornerback from Louisville. Looking at his, his final season specifically with the Cardinals, yeah, it was impressive. Yes, he put up a lot of production, good size of the position as well. I felt like he did a pretty good job in man coverage, but I was not expecting him to look this good throughout the week of practices. I mean, in one-on-ones on the outside, he was just tremendous. He had multiple pass breakups as well. I mean, he was turning a lot of heads this week. This is someone who is not afraid to come up and make contact. He's a physical corner. I like that. I like corners that are, their heads up in the running game, right? The quick passing, the screens, all this short passing and stuff that we see through spread offenses in college football. If you have corners that just aren't into coming up and making one-on-one tackles, trying to wrap up an open field, it's just brutal. And maybe that's just my personal bias because, I'm a defensive first guy. I just love physical cornerback play. I feel like if you have those two corners on the outside who are willing tacklers, guys that are not afraid to get their hands dirty, guys that aren't afraid to get physical, it's just such a luxury in the running game, right? Guys that can hold their block and then shed and go make a hit. I also think it gives linebackers help as well when you have these outside runs and, internally, because look, everyone's watching tape, throughout the week in game preparation. If linebackers know that corner that they're closest to is not a willing tackler, and clearly the offense knows it, what do you think is going through that linebacker's head? I got to get over there and move fast because I know he can't come up and make the tackle. I don't even know if he's going to be giving it 110% to go try to make the tackle. So it puts more stress on that linebacker that has to shoot outside. But if you have that, solid play, that willingness to go up and make hits, it takes pressure off the middle part of the defense. In other words, it's really important. So I was pretty impressed with Quincy Riley throughout the week. Next up, wide receiver from Oregon, Tez Johnson, another player that had high hopes, big expectations coming into the week. A lot of hype around Tez Johnson. His quickness, his overall speed, separation skills on full display. In fact, he actually reminds me a lot of Garrett Wilson. They just move the same way, move in space. They run routes the same way. Over the last 2 years, he had 20 touchdowns with the Oregon Ducks. Personally, I was actually more impressed with 2023. Not to say that he fell off in 2024, obviously. But just what he did in that 23 season was really impressive. And, he's a former transfer from Troy. He just burst out onto the scene for the Oregon Ducks. And that offense, just such an explosive player. Get him the football and he's just going to make plays or always pick up positive yardage, which is really important. And with this whole Davante Adams thing, he's tied to Aaron Rodgers. What's his future? Is he going to want to stick with the Jets? He's owed over $30 million. As far as a cap hit for this team, I could see the Jets wanting to trade Davante, especially if they get rid of Rodgers. So that obviously we already have depth issues at wide receiver, outside of Garrett Wilson and Davante. What are we really looking at here? I'm going to assume Lazard gets cut. Corley, didn't really see much of him. Gibson, just not really that big time positive impact player. I think Tez Johnson could be in play. I just don't necessarily know if whenever you're talking about a receiver who can run routes like this, who can separate like this, he's going to have a lot of suitors out there. The big team that everyone's mentioning is, of course, the Denver Broncos. A great fit within that offense and also former teammate of Bo Nix. So next up's a pretty interesting offensive lineman from West Virginia. It's Wyatt Millam. And the reason why I say interesting is because I feel like there's a mixed bag of kind of reactions to where he's going to play at the next level. One, he was dominant at the tackle position. He's played left tackle. He's played right tackle. He won Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year this past season. He didn't allow a sack in 2024 or in 2023. He's a monster in the running game. He has great size at 6'6", 317 pounds. Moves well for his size. Great tackle production. But you kind of feel like, like a lot of reporters and whatnot have him slated in as a guard because of the size. And I do think he could play that, but if he is going to be that guard first, I feel like that kind of eliminates the need for the Jets. I would say right now he's probably a third or second round pick. Would the Jets maybe select him if the better fit is for guard? Personally, I think he can play tackle. And he's been lining up a lot at guard, throughout this week, but he's been super, super impressive because he hasn't played guard before. And he's going to the Senior Bowl and doing really well, not only just holding his own, but he's turning heads and making plays. So I think that's a really interesting option. Again, personally, if the Jets wind up with Millam, I could see the Jets plugging him in at right tackle. There might be a learning curve as far as the veteran speed rushers off the edge. But even with that said, man, I mean, you're not going to go out and select the perfect prospect in round 2 or round 3. It would be different if we're talking top 5 pick. Okay, yeah, the traits that you're looking for in a set player, it's going to be different. But if you're talking about a mid-round pick, yeah, of course there's going to be some flaws. You're not going to get the A+ guy, or I should say the A+ prospect, in other words. And last but not least, Miami Hurricanes tight end Elijah Arroyo, someone who I felt like coming into the week wasn't really being taught, like he wasn't in that crop full of players that were like, okay, you know what, this is going to be that guy where everyone's focused in on. He was kind of considered a sleeper, but I mean, man, showed off the catch radius, showed off the quickness, showed off the ability to win 50-50 balls, right? Those jump ball situations. And clearly the Jets need a tight end desperately. Doesn't really feel like Jeremy Ruckert's the answer. Tyler Conklin set at the open market. You can argue that Tyler Conklin is going to be the best tight end to hit the market. And by the way, if the Jets are rolling out an offense that is similar to what we saw last season from the Lions, yeah, we're going to need a receiving threat at the tight end position. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Elijah Arroyo is going to come in and just dominate right off the bat and it's going to be this top 15 tight end. But I do think he showed off some traits to where, hey, if the Jets want to go out and, maybe as that day 2, day 3 guy, you could potentially find a diamond in the rough there. This was someone who was a pretty highly touted high school recruit, but missed a ton of time in his first couple years with Miami due to injury. But this past season, he was healthy, he was good to go, and of course put up career highs in all the major statistical categories. Really a breakout season for Arroyo. Again, I was impressed. I was impressed with all these guys. Some, of course, like, again, going into the week, you're like, okay, he's going to do well. But then others, really just jump off the screen at you. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And of course, this is not all the standouts here. There was, I actually had 4 or 5 other candidates or 4 or 5 other players that stood out to me personally that I just feel like maybe they're not the best fit for the Jets as far as, positional need, or where they're going to be picked, and just kind of looking at the free agents and everything like that as well. But in any case, let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.